Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their January 2nd, 2018 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5, Public Works Quarterly Report. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Public Works Director Chris Petrie.
Happy New Year, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As always, my pleasure to be here with you this evening presenting the Public Works Department's fourth quarter report for 2017. And we'll jump right into things and start off with the Holyoke Avenue improvements in our downtown area. Just go through a few highlights that occurred in the last quarter of 2017. First of all, you can see it on the slide itself that we have it featured on every slide moving forward, but the street light photo on the left side there, street lighting systems in the downtown area were completed in the fall. And then all of our banners, seasonal decorations, and hardware were also installed with those. And if you can drive through the downtown area, you'll see those now. Also, the downtown street clock was relocated and placed in Market Plaza and is now operating. You can see that in your center photo there on the slide. And then lastly, you'll see the photos of our new signage out in front of City Hall and then also on the southwest corner of the intersection right outside our door here. Those were installed on December 22nd. They were tested with power from a generator. One, we have the dynamic display sign that you see in the photo there that's in front of City Hall. And then the other sign on the southwest corner is going to be a backlit sign, wayfinding sign for downtown Lakeville. We're just waiting for Xcel Energy to install the permanent power, and then those will be up and running hopefully in the coming weeks. Work that is planned to occur in the spring of 2018 includes the seat wall installations at 8 locations through the Holyoke Avenue corridor, final landscaping, and then of course completion of the punch list and wrapping things up. Now moving on to wells 21 and 22. This is at the southeast corner of Dodd and Highview. Trout well drilling has completed the drilling of both wells. You can see the photo on the right is actually over the course of the winter here where we were drilling. They would drill, as you can see, from sun up until past sundown, and we would be drilling both wells. We are now in the process of test pumping both of those wells. That should be completed in the coming weeks, and then we'll move on this spring to finishing the site work and getting the wells ready for production this summer. Moving on, I've got a few slides here that are all environmental resource related, and I've got a couple quick videos that summarize these projects that I'll click on. And let me just get the cursor here. And first is buckthorn removal in our East Lake Community Park.
Hi, I'm Ann Messerschmidt with the Environmental Resources Department with the City of Lakeville. And we're out here at the East Community Woodland, and we're here to check out our recent happenings here of removal.
Okay, maybe we won't do that. We don't want to do
buckthorn.
Oh, wait.
We've been out here at the East Community Woodlot this last week removing buckthorn with a forestry mulcher. The City of Lakeville obtained this 13-acre woodland through the Farmland Natural Area Grant through Dakota County. We started off with a pretty solid understory of buckthorn, and when the buckthorn is in here, it's not good for the woodland because it makes it so baby trees can't grow, so you won't have a future forest. And you couldn't even see through this woodland at all. It was just a solid wall of buckthorn. So now we've come in here and we've removed all the buckthorn. The forestry mulcher is kind of a unique piece of equipment. It attaches onto a bobcat with tracks, and it's able to go forward and backwards through an area where they can carefully go around trees that we want to keep and go after just the buckthorn by just moving in certain increments. We've been working on this with a forestry mulcher for probably about 5 or 8 years, getting through this 12 acres of property. And so it takes a bit of time, but this last week we were able to probably get through our biggest chunk, which was about 3.5 acres of buckthorn that was removed. What's great about using the forestry mulcher is it's able to get through a big area of buckthorn in a shorter period of time. In the past, we've done kind of slash and burn, going through and selectively cutting or spraying, and it just takes an extraordinary amount of time. And what happens is once you cut a buckthorn, and if it isn't treated right away with chemical, it'll sprout up doubly the amount that was there, and it'll just keep spreading and it'll just keep coming back. So managing a buckthorn isn't just a one-time thing. It's you treat it once. Now in the spring we're going to have to start spraying again and going after it and keep going after it year after year. We can't stop, otherwise it'll come back in. Now we're going to plan on having somebody come in and seed with a rye seed mix to make sure that exotics don't come in, to try to help protect against that. And then we'll have them kind of limb up some trees and do some extra removal where we couldn't remove the buckthorn close enough to the trees. And then hopefully next spring we'll start planting with new species. What's exciting about removing all of this buckthorn now is we can finally start getting around to managing this woodland so that it can be an oak forest like it was originally pre-settlement. That's our goal, to make it as high quality as we can for this area.
So that was the buckthorn removal in East Lake, and for a point for everybody's reference, that's near the Spirit of Branch and Farm development. So moving on, I also wanted to feature the next project here that was also done by our environmental resources staff over the course of this summer and into the fall, and that's the second phase of the 205th Street channel stabilization. And this is a little more brief video, but it gives a good summary of the project and some really good kind of perspective as to how the project was constructed.
In 2009, the city approached the Vermilion River watershed to restore a portion of this channel that drains to Lake Marion. At that time, there were 8 to 10 foot cut banks of erosion leading down to the lake, and when you have a lot of excessive storm water and your land is really shaded and doesn't have the ability to grow good vegetation on it, it tends to erode the banks and deposits a lot of soil and nutrients into that channel, which gets into the lake. The runoff itself carries nutrients with it. Within the soil, we have phosphorus, nitrogen, things of that nature. Phosphorus being the most dangerous for our aquatic resources. A pound of phosphorus can create about 1,000 pounds of algae. So keeping the algae out of Lake Marion makes it better for the lake users and the aquatic wildlife that live in the lake. 2009, we restored from 205th Street to this walking bridge that crosses the channel, and then this year we worked from the walking bridge downstream to the wetland area just upstream of Lake Marion. We had a really narrow corridor to work with. We wanted to expose the soils below so we can get some vegetation growing, but we had to do a lot of tree removal to do that, taking out some of the poorer species that were in here, noxious, invasive, or generally a bad condition, and replacing those after we got done with a lot of the grading in here, smoothing out the slopes, making them more stable, getting vegetation established on it with erosion control blanket and seeding, and then coming in with trees and shrubs and planting those along the way. The city's been a great partner with us in past projects, and this project included. We've had a lot of success in working with the city of Lakeville on good restoration projects and protection projects. The Vermilion River watershed and the city both have goals to protect and improve our water resources, so this sort of project fit well in achieving that.
Well, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to show those two videos, and that one in particular, that joint project with the Vermilion River watershed was just a wonderful project where we received, solicited and received quite a bit of funding to help make that project a reality. So moving on, our GIS division has also been busy working with the parks staff and one of our consultants to develop a park-based web map application for the public use. And the web map will show the city's parks and trails along with park amenities and can be accessed by any mobile devices using a QR code or a quick response code. I'm sure you're familiar with those. That's in the photo there. Of course, those QR codes are a type of matrix barcode that can be used and ready on any device, such as a handheld mobile phone, and be accessed by the camera on that phone. And so in the future, with using this, we plan to implement this along with the parks staff so people can reserve park amenities using these QR codes, have maps of the park facilities and other things that we'll implement throughout the park system. Next, we'll keep on with the kind of environmental theme. As all of you know, and hopefully those that are listening have heard as well, the emerald ash borer was detected in Lakeville this fall. That was in late October, and it came from a resident report to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and it's the Arrest the Pest hotline. After our city forester had a chance to investigate, it was very clear that there was a EAB infested tree that had been there for quite a while in Lakeville. So following that, you can see the photo. Actually, the photo on the left is of the tree, and then the photo in the center was our first community presentation where we had over 30 residents in attendance here in this room on December 5th to talk about EAB and what we're going to do as a community moving forward. We also provided training, especially to all of our field staff, on emerald ash borer and how to detect it on December 15th. And then along with Department of Agriculture staff as well as city staff, over half the city was surveyed to determine the extent of the EAB infestation. Approximately 80 additional trees were identified. With trees in some of our park system. We focused mainly because the original infestation area was kind of in the northeast corner of the city. We focused on the northern half of the city. It seems to be contained kind of to that corridor along County Road 46, but we're working with our city forester and the Department of Agriculture to move forward with removal of the infected trees, and we'll be talking more at coming work sessions with the council about next steps. The next item is our Green Futures planting project at Casperson Park. This allowed 49 trees to be planted with 12 new species in the park at no cost to the city. The Green Futures program is administered by the Tree Trust and is funded with an anonymous grant to plant trees on city properties throughout Minnesota. The city forester applied for this grant program in early 2017. The city was awarded and chosen as one of the cities to receive the project. The planting work was completed this fall by Tree Trust staff, the city forester, our Minnesota Green Corps member, and a number of Lakeville residents that volunteered, as well as Tree Trust volunteers. Now the last couple of slides, that it is the end of, we've reached the end of 2017, we'll talk water use. So total water use through 2017 was 2.42 billion gallons. Compared to our 10-year average. The red line is 2017, the blue line is the 10-year average. 10-year average is 2.36 billion gallons, so compared to the 10-year average, about a 2.5% increase. However, we're virtually the same, literally within a few 100,000 gallons of what we pumped in 2016, so very much in line with that. And then our last slide is water use per capita. It was fairly consistent in the winter months, as you can see if you look on either side here, which is a very good thing to the 10-year average. In fact, if anything, in a few of the months, it was even lower than the 10-year average and less than 70 gallons per person per day, which is very, very good. But as is typical, and you can see in the center of the bar chart here, it varied significantly throughout the summer months when irrigation and precipitation vary and play a role. That does conclude the 2017 fourth quarter report for the Public Works Department. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 7, public hearing to consider annexation of approximately 119 acres of Air Lake Airport property to the city of Lakeville. And to provide the background information regarding this agenda item is Community and Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
Happy New Year, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is an item that council is somewhat familiar with, but we're now in an official process of the consideration of a petition that has been submitted by the Metropolitan Airports Commission to annex approximately 119 acres to the city of Lakeville. Jim, if you could maybe zoom in a little bit on this. And we're talking about, 119 acres of Air Lake Airport. And this is a map that shows the airport property in a couple different ways. If you can see, and you have them in your packet, this green outline border is the entire Air Lake Airport property. The blue line represents the current city limits, and there's a small portion of the Air Lake Airport today that has the FBO and the other large commercial hangar that's been part of the city for a number of years. This area to the west of the runway is in the city as part of the clear zone west of the runway, and then there's a small portion of the airport property in this area north of 20th Street. The majority of the airport, however, as you can see, including the private hangars on the north side of the runway, are and have been in Eureka Township for a number of years. The MAC, or Metropolitan Airports Commission, also known as the MAC, began reviewing the options for annexation approximately 2 years ago, and the City Council had this before you at a work session in January of 2016. And again, in September of last year, 2017, it was discussed as part of a presentation by MAC staff on the current long-term comp plan update that they're doing for the Air Lake Airport. Just as the city is doing its own comprehensive plan, the MAC is required as well. And the City Council at November 20th authorized the scheduling of the public hearing for this action that's before you tonight. The Minnesota Statutes 414.033 provides for the opportunity for a property owner to petition a city to annex up to 120 acres of land that is contiguous to or abuts the city. The city is required to provide a 30-day notice to the affected township and adjacent property owners by certified mail prior to the public hearing. That has been done. After those certified mail notices were sent, we heard from one property owner south of the airport, or south of 225th Street as well, that had a couple questions regarding the annexation process and what impact it may have on their property. We answered those questions over the phone. We were able to answer those questions over the phone, and that property owner had no additional concerns. But that's the only contact we've had since the certified mail notices have gone out. There's another provision of the statute that talks about the reimbursement to the township of a portion of property taxes that are collected on a property that's being annexed. Obviously, the majority of the time, I think property that is a subject of an annexation is usually privately owned property as opposed to publicly owned property. And that was the case of this 99 acres that was owned on the east side of Cedar a number of years ago. That property owner, Air Lake Development, petitioned the city, and we were able to negotiate an agreement with the township at that point. And there was a 5-year phase out of reimbursement of taxes on that property to the township. The issue with the property that's before the council tonight is the fact that, as has been alluded to, it's owned by the Metropolitan Airports Commission, but it's also currently doesn't generate any taxes. Obviously, MAC-owned property is tax exempt, the same as other publicly owned property. The only exception to that is when there are private improvements, such as exist on the north side of the runway, where there are private hangars today. They don't own the land that those hangars are developed on, but they have leases with the MAC and pay personal property taxes. That area is not part of this annexation petition. The only area is the 118 acres to the south side, and since there are no private improvements on that property, there are no taxes being paid on that property today. That's not to say that won't change in the future, but as of the time of the annexation, there are no property taxes being paid to anybody by the Metropolitan Airports Commission or their tenants. And finally, the Lakeville Chamber of Commerce weighed in on this, and their resolution of support was included in your packet as well. And you know, the primary purpose for this, and I believe Mr. Schmidt from the MAC is going to speak as part of the public hearing, is the desire or the plan to have the ability for the MAC to extend sewer and water services to the south side of that what's referred to as the South Runway area. The issue of, in the days of these hangars having holding tanks and other types of facilities is no longer allowed on any MAC reliever airport. So if there are going to be restrooms provided or any sort of water provided, it has to be a municipal type system, not a private well or private holding tanks. So I think what's been alluded to us by the MAC, and I think what Mr. Schmidt will probably reiterate, is the desire as they plan for additional hangar development in the south runway is that they want to be able to have the ability to provide sewer and water service in that hangar area in the future. I would like to clarify one issue, though, in terms of the action that's being requested tonight. It's staff recommendation that the council open and complete or conduct a public hearing tonight, and then close the public hearing. But along the same lines of what was just being talked about on publications, there's a new state law that requires us to publish ordinances, proposed ordinances, on the city website for 10 days prior to the public hearing, which we were, given the timing of this, we weren't able to do. So our recommendation is that the hearing be closed, and we will proceed to publish the proposed ordinance for 10 days prior to the next council meeting, and then on January 16th, this item would be brought back as probably a consent item to adopt there's two ordinances. There's the summary ordinance for publication in the newspaper, and then there's the full ordinance that includes the entire legal description. So tonight, the action recommendation from staff is to hold the public hearing, take any necessary or testimony of people that are in attendance, and to close the hearing and schedule action for this item at the next city council meeting on Tuesday, January 16th. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Item number 7 was tabled for future action at the January 16th City Council meeting. Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 8, appointment of the acting mayor for 2018. And to provide the information regarding this agenda item is Mayor Doug Anderson.
This is a business matter that we as a city it's a necessity for us to deal with on an annual basis. This past year, Councilmember LeBeau has served as our acting mayor. Typically, the acting mayor is the city council member who has seniority, and in this case, it would remain Councilmember LeBeau. Any discussion, comments, council? Otherwise, I would ask for a motion.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their January 2nd, 2018 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400, and you can watch the entire meeting online at lakevillemn.gov. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up.